Okay, so today we're going to talk about 3 different stories, and I'm going to show you what they pertain and how they pertain to you. Hello, my name is Arthur. I'm the CEO and founder of Tackleberry Solutions. We teach wartime tactics to citizens for self-defense purposes, and today I am filming to you from my barn in my pajama bottoms. Yeah, I should totally back the camera up just so you can see my pajama bottoms. Alright, seriously, this was a video I wanted to do because I kind of put this together just a minute ago and I wanted to get it on film before I totally forgot it, and if I wait till in the morning I'll have totally forgot it. So here's the deal. I'm going to give you 3 stories, and I'm going to try to condense them as much as I can for the sake of time. The first one takes place in August of 2007 in a little place called Cantonea, Iraq. Now, if you Google Cantonea and Al Jazeera bombings of August 2007, you'll get a lot of pictures from Al Jazeera. You're not going to get crap from Cantonea. Why? Because Al Jazeera was the popular town. That's where everybody focused. What you need to understand is this was a retaliatory bombing for the attack that took event earlier in Talafar. In Cantonea, in my personal opinion, the attack was worse. So in August 2007, I had just gotten to my unit, 19 Cab Bravo Recon in Iraq. And I was a replacement for those guys. I'd been there 2 days. I got woke up just, I don't even remember what time in the morning. It was still dark as crap, balls early, and I was told to get up and get topside. So I got to the talk. They snatched me up, asked me if I could drive a Humvee. I was like, yeah, I know how to drive a damn Humvee. All right, get your ass in the truck. Halfway there, they realized that I had just gotten to the unit. I hadn't even zeroed my freaking new rifle yet. They just issued me a new rifle, and I was woefully unprepared to be out the wire. But they needed me. They had to have somebody to drive top. I was not even on the ground a full day, and I was right back in the rear to talk on the radio. So I got a glimpse of a 3-day long operation. But what I saw will absolutely, is still in my head, very, very permanent, to the point that I am still smelling and hearing and tasting everything that I tasted, smelled, and heard that day. So when I got there to Cantonea, the sun was just caressing the horizon, and there was just a mist, a fog, if you will, about the entire city. We got into the heartland of it. One platoon kicked out and pulled the outer perimeter. The other platoon went in and started conducting rescue operations. They were trying to find people, to find bodies. In this particular case, 2 dump trucks had rolled into the center of Cantonea, and they started throwing out candy to draw in the children, and then they torched off. So they killed collectively a little over 300 people and injured vast more. It was over 1,000 people. A massive search and rescue and recovery operation underwent. It lasted 3 days before the Iraqi government came in and stopped everything. I watched, for the brief time that I was there, seasoned veterans pulling body parts out of the rubble and ralphing. These are guys that have been there 9 months. Other guys, this is their 2nd, 3rd tour in Iraq, and they just were ralphing. The smell, the sound, the moaning, the wailing of people, crying for their loved ones, searching through the rubble, trying to find their kids and stuff. One mother had been up the street, had her son run down to pick up candy. When she realized that it was bad, that the situation was bad, it was too late. Her son was vaporized. She had received shrapnel wounds to her upper torso, her face, and but she survived it. But she was one of the ones, freaking metal shards in her face, trying to find her kid. She never found him. I watched another guy pull up a leg to what could have been a toddler, and there was a section of skin still attached. I kept tasting a metallic taste in my mouth, and I was smelling something. I want you to understand I'd spent 3 years previous to this in law enforcement, so seeing dead bodies was not unusual to me. The smell of death was not unusual to me. But the smell of Comp B and dust and pink mist are still in my brain. I quickly realized that what I was tasting, that metallic taste in my mouth, was because every time I inhaled, I was breathing in someone else's body parts and blood. That aura, that fog we were seeing, that dust that still hadn't settled from the explosion was not just dust. It was body parts, blood, pieces of guts and feces and stuff that was floating in the air and was still trying to settle from the massive explosion. That is what war looks like. And if you're living in a city, you better prepare yourself for that, because that's what you're going to see. They're not going to necessarily come busting up in your house. They'll torch off a suicide vehicle right there in your neighborhood. In that case, it was right in the middle of the city square. And like I said, they were handing out candy to draw the children in before torching off 2 dump trucks full of explosives. That is what war looks like. Are you ready for that? Because I don't think you are. I sure as hell wasn't. I don't even know that I am now. I can't guarantee that I wouldn't be one of the guys out there ralphing right now if I had to be picking up body parts. So, that's story number 1. Now, I want you to hang on, because you're going to learn something. This is Tackleberry's solutions, not Tackleberry's problems. Okay? I'm going to give you the solution at the end. Story number 2. The abbreviated version of 21 Angels. Conducting an operation. Same year, same deployment. I think it was 2 months later. 2 months later. Conducting a operation, joint operation with the Marines. Acting as a catch screen. We come across a small family in the middle of the desert. 30 miles from the nearest anything. We find them in a little makeshift tent. Got 3 women, or 3 girls rather, out there. One, the youngest one, passed out asleep on the ground. The older 2 still on their knees praying, from what it appeared. Jump out of the truck, rush in the tent, find an old man laying what appeared to be half dead, and his wife there, not in much better shape. A bottle and a half of water that was so filthy I wouldn't have fed it to the sick mule outside, who looked like he was dying from a good case of worms. A rifle, an AK-47 with half a magazine of ammunition that had been recently fired. That was it. That's all they had. I think the wife had a little box, if I remember correctly. I don't remember what was in it, little trinkets and things, but that was it. That's all they had. We, because we're Americans, because these were fellow Christians, because they were just fellow human beings, we did what Americans do, and we gave them food. We gave them water, more food than their mule could carry. We even lost a compass, a grid coordinates, and an azimuth, and a distance and heading to Sinjar, which was the southernmost part of Kurdistan, which was an area that was a safe haven for Christians. We then did one better. Our lieutenant calls up, gets a radio call over to the Kurds and tells them these guys' grid coordinates, and asks them to send out a rescue team to come pick these people up. We can only assume they did. We don't know the end of the story. A little while later, I asked my interpreter what the hell happened. Because here I am shoving tobacco down the mouth of a mule, and our medics are treating these people, and we're giving them food and stuff, and I'm like, what the hell happened here, guy? Well, he tells me that man was one of the most wealthiest men in the country. What? Yeah, he was. Had a beautiful home, concrete block home, which is really nice for these people. 2 vehicles, which tells you in that world that, whew, yeah, you're up there, you're doing what? You're doing real good. Mules, sheep, he had it all. He was doing really well, had a beautiful family, 3 daughters, a wife, doing good for himself. Was very wealthy in his community. But when the Marines hit Fallujah during the operations of 07, they drove the Al-Qaeda out. Some of the members of Al-Qaeda came into his village. The people there, trying to save their own damn skin, immediately gave him up in the dead of the night as a Christian. That AK-47 that had been recently fired, he spent half that magazine suppressing Al-Qaeda soldiers while his family made a run for it. The sick, dying mule outside was the only one they could find because it was too sick to run away from the house. That was the only one they could find. They carried the makeshift tent they had. They drug what little bit of water they could out of a freaking mud puddle and ran for it. That mud puddle, I call it a mud puddle, was actually their well. And they made a run for it in the middle of the night. That's as far as they had gotten when the old man declared that he was going to lay there and die. The mother beckoned the kids to take what little bit of water they had left, all the food they had left, which was like a piece of bread, the donkey, and make a run for Kurdistan. The children, not knowing what to do, stayed there all the rest of that day and throughout the night, praying. They were praying that God would send them an angel to save their family. Well, he didn't send them an angel. He sent them 21 pissed off recon soldiers. And they got what they needed. Why? Because that's what Americans do. And that's how God works. He sends you the most unsuspecting of an angel. Sometimes in a form it takes you a minute or two, maybe even a year or two, to realize that that was an angel. That was a miracle. You're getting ready to see a lot of those. And I want you to remember to be that angel, to be that miracle for your fellow brother and sister, your fellow American, and your fellow brother and sister of God. Because we're getting ready to have that time happen and befold us. The third and final story is one that I want you to pay close attention to. This happened back in the Civil War. This man had been a veteran. He knew about war, and he decided he was going to ride this one out. The Civil War kicked off. He was living in the heartland of Dixie, and he decided that him and his family were just going to ride it out. His sons, they were too young for war, and he was too old for war, and he was just going to lone wolf this. He ignored the cause of his country to go to war. And he thought he was going to ride it out on his farm. Until one day, a bunch of Union soldiers hung his two oldest boys for being bushwhackers when they were really out scouting for food. Well, then he got real invested. Matter of fact, he got so invested, he spent what little bit of money he had buying a very specialized rifle. And he sat up on a ridge overwatching a riverbank and spent the rest of the war assassinating Union officers bringing supplies up the river on a boat. He got very invested. The difference was he was trained and he knew what he was doing. He effected kills on Union soldiers over 500 yards in distance. This was in 1860. The 1860s. The weaponry to make that kind of a range of a shot had not that was all skill. That was not the weapon. That was skill. It's not like today where you can do that with a deer rifle. No, man, that was skill. That guy knew what he was doing. And what's more, he had learned another lesson. He was hiding his family up in the mountains and the caves. He knew he was no longer untouchable. He realized that just because he was going to lone wolf it, he was still going to get touched. They were going to drag his ass into that war one way or another. And what I'm teaching you here, just like every time we've done a video, or every time you interact with my company, you're going to learn something. I don't care if you're a CAG operator, special forces, you're going to learn something eventually, sometime, way, shape, or form. From me, you're going to learn something, I promise. Just give it a minute. But there's a couple different things you're learning here tonight. One, you're learning just how unbelievably violent and bad this war is going to be. Because yes, we are at war. Whether it's true or not that the drug cartel is pushed across the Rio Grande and is now occupying a city or a small town in America and is actively engaged in a firefight with Texas militia guys, whether that's true or not, the fact of the matter is we are going to be invaded very soon. The other thing is, it's a truthful fact, is that the last time we had a, national divorce that's been talked about here recently, that didn't end too well for us. It ended up in a civil war. So we're going to have war. You're going to see what I described in the first story here in the United States is going to happen. The second story is teaching you when to get out. Don't wait till it's too late. Don't care more about your worldly possessions than you do your family. Know when it's time to get the hell out. And third of all, learn tactics. You ain't going to ride this out. You're going to be involved. So you better learn what you can learn while you can, because knowledge is more powerful. Your mind is the most powerful weapon that you can ever yield. And that is what my company is willing to help you hone and teach you and develop, is their mind. Now for the solution. Start right now by clicking the link below. You're going to learn something every single time you open the email. You're going to get a story just like those, and you're going to learn something. And then we're going to give you the House of Pain. And then we're going to give you something else, Home Defense Tactics. And every single time you engage with my company, you're going to learn something. Because knowledge is power, and I promise you are going to become a lethal weapon that will take the stories you just heard and make you the victor every time. Thank you guys very much for watching. Y'all have a great day.